All right, let's take a look at the charts today. First, we'll take a look at Bitcoin, sitting at $96,645 at time of recording. Kind of a steady day today in the charts. The last few days have just kind of been pretty mellow after that big pump from the tariff lows of 74,000. If you caught that bottom, good for you. Nice work. But we had that massive candle up from like mid 80s up to about 97. And people are talking about like us breaking into new all-time highs soon. Easy to talk about it, but not as easy to make it happen. Although one solid candle could do it for new all-time high, and I think that would bring tons of needed attention back to the space. It's been, despite sitting at 90, the mid 90s, it just kind of feels like sentiment is still kind of just blah. Like people aren't excited really. Crypto's just kind of it's happening. Things are moving. A lot is happening in the background, but it doesn't, that euphoric, like excited feeling that is often in the markets in a bull market just isn't there. And I guess that's bullish. Honestly, like that makes me bullish that people are just kind of bored. More or less bored of Bitcoin at $96,000 is wild. So keep watching the charts, keep buying, obviously stack Bitcoin, but not financial advice. Let's take a look at some news stories on the day. Dow jumps 500 points on a solid jobs report. S&P 500 heads for longest winning streak in 20 years. The tariff lows and woes, I guess, over the past couple weeks have kind of brought sentiment in the S&P 500 and, traditional markets down, but things in general are looking relatively okay, honestly, in the stock market. Big, I guess, Bitcoin news of the day is Strategy. It's no longer MicroStrategy. Strategy doubles down its Bitcoin purchase plans. So there, Michael Saylor is, leaning in. So it says the company, which does business as Strategy now, posted a first quarter loss of $4.23 billion. And analysts were calling for a loss of 11 cents a share. But Strategy has unveiled its so-called 42-42 plan on Thursday's earnings call, saying it intends to secure a total of $84 billion of capital over the next 2 years to support its Bitcoin treasury options. So Michael Saylor, we already know this. He's all in. Now he's double all in. The man's buying Bitcoin. He loves his Bitcoin. Just another article about that on the block if you wanted to check that out. Another piece of crypto news here is Tether is looking at expanding into the U.S. with a new stable coin, aiming to kind of come after USDC, I guess, in a way, some of the market share that USDC has. I think people go back and forth between like Tether and USDC. I typically more so use USDC as a stable coin. There's all sorts of Tether FUD that comes up every about 6 months or so. People talking about Tether being insolvent and all this stuff, but they are preparing to launch US-based stablecoin as soon as this year. CEO Paolo Ardoino, recent charm offensive in Washington, has put a spotlight on Tether amid the pro-crypto shift under President Trump. So kind of seeing like the current administration being quite pro-crypto. They're taking a stab at being legal here in the U.S. So something to keep an eye on. Another story here, Apple eases NFT and crypto rules for iOS apps following an antitrust ruling. So Apple's loosening some restrictions on developers' abilities to offer iPhone and iPad apps directly to users to externally purchase NFTs and cryptocurrency. So Apple turning bullish and kind of opening the door to crypto services. And again, people are talking about the M2 money supply. So the green line here on the chart is the M2 money supply. And countries are printing. A lot of countries are printing money, and the money supply is skyrocketing. And the orange chart on here is Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, which seems to match the M2 money supply pretty well. So something to keep an eye on. So, there's a lag here, and if Bitcoin does follow, looking at like 144,000 relatively soon. Could happen, in the summer. Keep an eye on that. Just to take a look at a couple of other charts here real quick before the end of this video. So SUI sitting at $3.50. We'll take a look at ADA, sitting at 69 cents. God, I would love to see ADA do a little bit more here. Had this massive pump out of the like digital reserve news back in, was that March. The Trump tweeted about ADA, and it had this massive bump, and then it's been a little dumpy since. I'd like to see this kind of fall in the, Sui had a massive pump. We'd like to see something like that for ADA, obviously. And then Solana as well, kind of boring last few days, sitting at $147. And then last piece of news here, Jim Cramer saying there will not be a recession. Obviously, a lot of people inverse trade Cramer. A lot of times he's wrong. He's quite often wrong. And he's saying there will not be a recession. So, we're doomed.